Hello and welcome back to GLC TV. We have another GLC gameplay video for you. This was another casual game against Cory that we played on September 6th. And this was a fun showcase of an interesting take on a colorless deck that uses luck-based cards to take extra prizes. For those who don't know, Gym Leader Challenge, or GLC, is an official alternative format for the Pokemon TCG created by Andrew Mahone of Tricky Gym, in which players use cards printed from the expanded era pool of sets, black and white onward, to build a deck with only Pokemon of a single type, and can only include a single copy of each card, except for basic energy. GLC decks cannot use any cards which have a rule box, which includes cards like V-Stars, EXs, Radiant Pokemon, and A-Specs. Here's a quick overview of the deck list being played. Cory is playing a colorless deck that I believe was originally created by Cardboard Warriors player Guibz. The core tenet of this deck is, imagine if you could play a super powerful attacker like Snorlax, but also have it be able to take an extra prize like Guzzlord. This deck accomplishes this by using Greedy Dice and Lucky Bonus Chansey, manually placing those cards into the prizes and then forcing their coin flips to land on heads via the supporter card Will. Peonia is one way to put these cards into the prizes without randomizing them or flipping them face up, but the main mechanic of the deck is to manipulate the top card of the deck using cards like Oranguru and Academy at Night to put either the Chansey or the Greedy Dice on top of the deck, and then use the card Arc Phone to swap that card with a card in the prizes, and then you know exactly which prize to take to trigger that extra prize ability. And since that uses an item, Will can be played in the same turn to force the next coin flip to land on heads and automatically take an extra prize, which is super powerful in GLC. And the reason that this deck can afford to run all these weird cards without bricking is because of having one of the most powerful draw engines in GLC, which is Bibarel and Skwovet, being able to effectively see 6 new cards every turn. The deck also uses Pelipper to be able to find or reuse Will at the exact moment he's pull off his strategy. I'm playing a much more typical Dragon deck to test against Cory's deck. Dragon is a deck that more or less revolves around reusing double Dragon energy and key supporters like Raihan over and over to power up its attackers, as well as using Dragonite's Fast Call ability to find the supporters it needs each turn, and Gabite's Dragon Call ability to set up its various Dragon Pokemon. Dragon's kind of my bread and butter. It's the deck that I've been playing the longest in GLC, and it's one I probably enjoy playing the most. In this build, I've been trying out the new Haxorus Pokemon from Shrouded Fable, which can do 230 damage for 2 energy, which really helps out Dragon with some of its tougher matchups. I should mention that this game was played right before the pre-release weekend of Stellar Crowned, and I've since updated this deck to include Crispin. Cory is actually already trying out Crispin in his deck, but he's not running the Fan Rotom, which is a very powerful new setup and early attacker card for colorless decks from the new set. Oh yeah, and Cory mentioned to me that his family likes it when I put his voice up on the video. So here's some choice words from Cory for you all to enjoy.
The toughest thing I have with this deck is when do I prioritize doing goofy shenanigans and when do I prioritize like setup, because it feels like if my opponent is hitting all the beats, it's just a bad deck.
Alright, so Cory starts off going first for this game, and he's got Lugia in the active, and he benches Oranguru and Wingull, which is going to give him access to Pelipper starting on the next turn. I've got Gible in the active spot, which is fine, and Cory did have to take a mulligan, so I am up a card here starting in the first game. And then Cory uses Primate Wisdom, so lets him see an extra card each turn. I remember playing this Oranguru in Standard back in the day, and it enables a lot of cool things, especially with cards like Marnie and Iono. You can kind of manipulate the top card of your deck and hide cards on top of your deck so you don't get hit by disruption. So I have the Evolution Incense to grab the Gabite, and usually I would not play it like that. Normally I think it's not a good idea to use your search cards if they leave a card stranded in your hand, just because card disruption is so prevalent in GLC that when you signal to your opponent that you've got an important card in your hand that you just searched out, but you can't actually play it, you're just asking to get Marnied or Ionoed. But I was doing this mainly just trying to thin out my deck. I remember my hand here was really, really bad. I had no energy in my hand to retreat my Gible, and the only supporter I have is Avery to try and draw cards. So I think I was just trying to thin my deck out before I play Avery to try and draw into something. That Lugia is going to start powering up. Although thankfully I do play the 70 HP Gible, so I wouldn't be in threat of being knocked out there. But so there's the Avery. I think I drew Silene, Hisuian Heavy Ball, and something else. I can't remember. I think a recovery item. But a Muscle Band plus double colorless energy could donk me here if I don't find a basic. So Hisuian Heavy Ball.
I just love how they model the Pokemon after Falcor. That's just hilarious. Especially that art. Have you seen the illustration there? There's like kids writing it and it's like flying through the air. And I'm like, okay, I see.
So sadly, no Drampa, but I did draw an Axew off of the Avery, I believe. Oh, and I do have the Drampa. Okay, so I have Drampa and Axew. And just have to pass back to Cory here, so at least not in threat of being donked. But I would really like to get that Gible out of the active spot if I can. So we're going to use Primate Wisdom to see another card. Finds an energy off of it. I think I had Faba in my hand here, but Cory just never played a special energy. Cory does play the Ultra Ball, discarding Escape Rope and Super Rod to find Pelipper. Going to use the Pelipper to find a supporter here. Cool thing about Pelipper is you can get from the discard as well, so it's kind of like having another copy of Versus Seeker in colorless. And so for Cory's deck, which the strategy revolves heavily around the supporter Will, being able to get it back with Pelipper is really powerful. But he's going to grab Winona here, the kind of colorless version of Lance, to find 3 colorless Pokemon. He's going to get Bibarel, Bidoof, and Squovit, his draw engine as he calls it. So we're going to be able to set it up, and these 3 Pokemon, or these 2 evolution lines, super important to this colorless deck. This colorless deck runs a ton of bricks, really is what I'll call them, just cards that, it's like a combo deck, but they don't do anything without each other. But having this draw engine of Bibarel and Squovit, where you can just put your hand on the bottom, draw a card with the Squovit, and then draw up to 5 with Bibarel. Such a powerful draw ability to churn through your deck and just find the pieces you need and replace the pieces you don't need at the time. And it allows for this kind of wonky strategy that I don't think would work in most other GLC decks without this kind of draw power. Arrow Ball attack for 40 damage with the 2 energy, now threatening the 2-hit KO even if Gabite evolves with 80 HP. And I think I was just drawing dead this time. Only supporter in my hand is Silene. I do draw Druddigon, but not drawing any energy. Would love to be able to retreat. I do evolve into Fracture here, but no supporters and no energy. And so this Gabite is gonna die if I can't get it out of the active spot to this Arrow Ball. Using Dragon Call to find a Dragon Pokemon. Dragon Call, one of the reasons why I feel like running 3 stage 2 lines in Dragon is possible. But I think I do have Dracloak in my hand, so I'm gonna grab the Dreepy here. Dracloak been really solid in Dragon since it came out. Just so great to be able to see 2 extra cards each turn. Like, a lot of the times you don't need 2 more cards, you just need that 1 card for your turn that is going to help you out, and just being able to dig 2 cards deeper into your deck with Dracloak each turn has been really, really great. So basically forced to use the Silene here. I need some more draw power, and Silene gets me 2 heads, so now I get to do 2 cards back on top of the deck. I debate for a little bit what order to put them in, but ultimately decide to put the Avery on the top, so I draw it next turn. I thought about putting the Evo Incense on top so I could get an evolution, and then I would be able to use Dracloak to check with the top 2, and if there was a better supporter than Avery, I could put Avery on the bottom of my deck, but rather just draw Avery and see if I need the Evolution Incense. And just have to pass here without any energy to retreat my Gabite. Gonna have to lose it early, which really sucks because Garchomp is one of the more powerful attackers in the Dragon deck as well. So Cory uses Industrious Incisors to draw first. Interesting that he decides to draw with Incisors before he Nest Dash. Normally the order of operations is you Nest Dash your hand to the bottom, draw a card, and then you use Industrial Incisors to draw back up to a 5-card hand. He uses Pokegear here, so it must have something in his hand that he wants to hold on to. He's got Peonia in his hand. It looked like a copy of Greedy Dice as well. So we're going to grab Mallow off the Pokegear. So that's another cool combo he can pull off here. With Mallow and Oranguru, he can basically search for any card in his deck and put it into his hand with Oranguru. Being able to search for any card from your deck and put it in your hand is a pretty powerful effect on a supporter. So we're going to play Mallow here. Pulls up the Chansey. So uses Mallow to get Will and Greedy Dice. Puts the Will on top of his deck. Okay, so he's got Greedy Dice on top of the deck. He plays Arc Phone from hand, swaps the Greedy Dice with one of his prizes, the top right, so he'll remember which one it is. Accidentally revealed it to me that that's the Greedy Dice. He didn't actually have to with Arc Phone. You don't have to show your opponent any of the cards you're switching. I'm going to attach to the Lugia. I do point out that he doesn't need to, so he might be wasting an energy there if I am able to take a knockout on the Lugia. Takes the knockout with Arrow Ball for 40 damage on Gabite. So I've got not much going on in my hand here, so I decide to just send up Druddigon on the off chance that I maybe draw Counter Energy or Double Dragon. I play the Dracloak from hand, and here I decide to do Recon Directive to see if there's anything on top that I'd rather draw into besides the Evo Incense, and I do find Quick Ball, which is interesting. Could use that to get Regidrago and start drawing cards if I can find a way to get Druddigon out of the active. And I do decide that Quick Ball is what I want, since the only evolution that would be relevant right now would be Haxorus, which is not going to help me get out of the situation. So I do play the Quick Ball here and discard, looks like Lost City. Lost City, a very powerful tech card for when you're ahead and beating your opponent. Really cuts off avenues of recovery and comebacks. Problem is, it is a very dead card in the early game when you're trying to get set up, and so it always comes in and out of my deck. And yes, gonna grab either Regidrago or Dratini are the choices. Dragonite would be super helpful, but getting Dratini is an uncertain factor on whether I'll be able to set up the Dragonair and Dragonite, especially without Gabite anymore, whereas Regidrago represents a direct access to card draw. And now we're going to play the Avery to draw 3 cards and limit Cory's bench to 3. However, I think that actually helps Cory a little bit by putting the Pelipper in the discard, Since Pelipper is just taking up a bench spot as it is now, I'm basically freeing up Cory's bench for 2 more bench Pokemon. And my current hand is Faba, Rescue Stretcher, Spikemuth, and Special Charge. Not looking good. A lot of tech and recovery cards that are not super helpful to me in the moment. I do have the Blend Energy as well, so I'm going to attach that to Regidrago. So the thought here being, if Druddigon gets knocked out, I can promote Regidrago and hopefully draw some cards if I can empty my hand and maybe draw into a Double Dragon or a Counter Energy. Alright, so Cory's going to start off his turn with Will, which is optimistic, as Lugia, even with a double colorless, would only be able to do 80 damage to... Well, actually, no, with the second attack could actually get a knockout with a double colorless. Cory briefly considers putting a Luxurious Cape on Lugia, thinking it won't hurt him if I have Haxorus to knock it out with bring the axe down. However, Haxorus can do 230, so that would knock out the Lugia. I'm going to use Squovit to try to find the card. He needs double colorless to get the knockout here, otherwise this will be wasted. And I point out here that Will is played in this deck to mitigate the luck factor, and yet he has now played Will into a turn where it is uncertain if he'll be able to take the knockout. So I think waiting on Will until he had a knockout scenario would have been better. After all, this deck can only use that Greedy Dice so many times, so he would have had another opportunity to use it later. And he does not draw into the double colorless that he needs to take the knockout with Lugia's second attack. Plays Artisan though to start getting some more attackers out of his deck. Grabs the Thumping Snore Snorlax, one of the most powerful attackers in the format. 180 damage on a basic for effectively 2 energy in colorless, which has access to 3 double colorless energies, and 150 HP on a basic. Gonna play Fighting Fury Belt on the Snorlax to get it above. I'm sorry, Fighting Fury Belt was on the Lugia and puts 50 damage on Druddigon. Still gets it up to 170 out of a lot of dragon damage. Artisan now in play for me as well, so gonna use that to probably grab the Dratini at this point. Yep, there's the Dratini, and I don't think I've got much going on in my hands still. Sometimes games are just like that in GLC. You just draw the wrong half of your deck or the wrong quarter of your deck. That's all your tech cards and recovery cards, and you have a hard time setting up. Recon Directive, hopefully draw me into something. Oh, Cynthia, there we go. Cynthia and Evolution Incense. So the Cynthia is a godsend. So grabbing the Cynthia, which is going to help a lot with getting a new hand for me. First evolving into Haxorus while it's in my hand. And playing the Cynthia. Shuffling my hand into my deck to draw 6 new cards. Hopefully it is not too little too late here. I would need Double Dragon, Muscle Band, and a switch item to be able to take a knockout here. But nothing else I need, just gonna have to pass again. Just not finding energy for some reason. 11 energy in the deck. I believe I did have 2 water energy in the prizes, but just for some reason can't find any energy. Cory gonna start off with Colress's Tenacity though to find his energy that he needs. Grabs a double colorless energy and a Stadium, but it looks like he doesn't have any Stadiums left in the deck. Uses Artisan. Nope, no targets for Artisan either. Cory kicking himself a bit here for that Will that's staring at him from the discard pile, since now he'll be able to take the knockout he needs. Could dig for Versus Seeker though. He does need one more energy on Lugia to take a knockout on the Druddigon, who has 70 HP left. Lugia currently doing 50 damage. Goes to attach a double colorless to Snorlax. Goes for the Nestache, then Industrious Incisors to draw back up to 5. So Cory was playing a little too quickly there and admits he should have put the energy on the Lugia so he'd be able to take the KO. But he was a bit on autopilot when he attached to the Snorlax, so since this is a practice game, I tell him to just make a correction and move the energy. Correcting mistakes during practice games has the benefits of both providing much more accurate playtest data, but also prevents the creation of bad habits and helps players to practice making the right play in the future when it matters. Goes for the knockout, takes a prize, leaves the Greedy Dice. We're going to try and get that on the next turn. Gets Regidrago. I think that was the right choice, by the way, to go for the knockout there. Might as well. But it does allow me to play Teammates to finally get the cards I need to start setting up. So I grab Counter Energy and Rare Candy here, as I do have Dragonite in my hand from Cynthia. Counter Energy, great card in Dragon, even though a lot of times Dragon wants to start off ahead and aggressive. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And by having Counter Energy in the deck, you can preserve your double dragon as you start to make your comeback against an opponent who's ahead. So Buddy Poffin played here just to fail to find, to empty my hand to draw more cards with Dragon's Horde. Counter Energy on the Regidrago is going to fully power it up. Dragonite going to come down with Rare Candy. Muscle Band on the Regidrago to bring Dragon's Fangs up to 180 damage to knock out through the Fighting Fury Belt. And here I use Town Map to reveal Garchomp in the prizes, 2 water energies, and then able to draw, I believe I drew 4 cards here, or maybe 2 at the Dragon's Horde. And then after doing Dragon's Horde, I do Recon Directive, and choice between Versus Seeker and Escape Rope. I believe I grabbed the Versus Seeker. Now I'm going to use Fast Call. Always important to remember to use Fast Call even if you've already used your supporter, just because Dragonite can always get gusted and knocked out, and then you won't have the supporter you needed for next turn. So I try to always use Fast Call predictively when I've already used my supporter. Generally, I will grab Raihan off of Fast Call if I can't play the card, just because if Dragonite's going to get knocked out, then Raihan is a card that I will be able to play to power up another attacker. Looks like I do get Hex Maniac here. I think predicting that that will be the most powerful card I can play against Cory. And Giant Fangs with the Muscle Band takes the knockout on the Lugia, getting me finally on the board with a prize. Not too excited about my prize options though, with taking the Water Energy to try to get some more energy flowing. There's also a Level Ball. Alright, now the Twin Energy comes down onto the Snorlax. Again, powering up 180 damage attack with just 2 energy. And now he's got the Versus Seeker, gets the Will out of the discard pile. And yeah, about that chances of a comeback, we're going to see Snorlax go into full-on Guzzlord mode. Cory uses Adventure Bag. Gonna grab Luxurious Cape and U-turn board. Problem with Snorlax and... I mean, Haxorus can usually do the trick on Snorlax, either with 230 or... But the problem with its Bring Down the Axe attack, which normally would be really good against colorless attackers, is Snorlax's Unfazed Fat ability prevents effects of attacks against it. And knocking out is an effect, not damage. So Unfazed Fat, really annoying to deal with when you've got a Lux Cape on the Snorlax. Putting it at 250 HP, which also puts it out of range of Haxorus' second attack without Muscle Band available. So Cory uses Primate Wisdom here to see an extra card. I think I think when using Primate Wisdom, if you're just using it to see an extra card, you generally want to use it before you use a shuffle effect, so that you can shuffle away the card you put back. So it might have been better to use it before the adventure bag there. Does use Nest Stash to shuffle his hand to the bottom and draw one card. Uses the Artisan to get out another attacker in Cyclizar. And here comes the Thumping Snore for 180. Knocking out the Regidrago. And we're going to see the combo here, as Will was played this turn. So Cory grabs that prize he knows is the Greedy Dice. And because it's an effect of a trainer card, he doesn't have to flip. He gets automatic heads and gets to take another prize, going down to just 2 prizes remaining. It's not looking good for me. But Snorlax does not wake up. Flips a Tails for one of its Thumping Snore flips. I promote Haxorus. Apologies for the glare here. Cory talks about the awkwardness of pulling a specific prize instead of pulling from the bottom, which is kind of funny. But gonna have to try and take this Snorlax out. And sadly, not gonna be able to get 2 prizes off of it in one hit. I use Fast Call here just to grab Lance. I'm not actually going to play Lance. What I'm doing here is I'm actually just using Fast Call to basically add another card to my hand so I can use it as discard fodder. Lance not really super useful here at this point in the game. But that Hex Maniac is going to be the card that I need. But before I play it, I need to use all my abilities. So Recon Directive between Rainbow and Ultra Ball. Again, not really needing more Pokemon at this point. The Rainbow Energy will probably come in handy. I think actually the Rainbow Energy is my only fighting type energy in hand. So that was a good draw. And here is the Hex Maniac. Oh no, I do have Aurora Energy, which is actually much better because Cyclizar can do 140, and with a Muscle Band it would be 160. Haxorus has 170. So Aurora Energy on the Haxorus, and then uses Bring Down the Axe. Able to take the knockout because the Hex Maniac was played, turning off the Unfazed Fat ability. And also critically turning off all of Cory's draw power off of his Skwovet, Oranguru, and Bibarel. Hopefully going to slow him down enough that I can start taking multiple prizes before he can take his final 2. So Cory, without access to his abilities, is going to have to figure out what to do. Going to use Rescue Stretcher here, gets back the Snorlax. Needs to hit 180, so not going to be, or 170 on Haxorus. But with Raihan, going to be able to charge up this Snorlax. Finds Muscle Band from his deck, but looks like he is short an energy. Finds Muscle Band with Raihan. By the way, you don't have to show what you find with Raihan, but I appreciate it for the commentary. Puts Muscle Band on the Snorlax. Oh, there's the double turbo. And yeah, that Muscle Band is going to be critical because double turbo reduces damage by 20. So you'd only be doing 160, but the Muscle Band going to up the damage back up to 180, which is just enough to take the knockout on the Haxorus. Able to fight through that Hex Maniac turn, and here we can see just how powerful Snorlax is when you can just replay it over and over with access to 3 double energies in colorless. And he wakes up with 2 heads, so I am in a really tough spot now. No attackers in play. Drampa is not turned on. All I have is Dracloak, Dragonite, and Drampa, but I have not played Double Dragon Energy yet. Recon Directive finds Prism and Fighting Energy. So I put the Prism Energy back, keeping the basic Fighting Energy in my hand. I do have Double Dragon Energy in hand. Use Fast Call here. And Faba is going to help me out. Able to grab Faba because it's a supporter. Faba, a card I love playing over Field Blower lately because I can search it out with Fast Call. And also I can recycle it with Palpad and Versus Seeker, unlike Field Blower, which when you draw it early game is so frustrating when you have to discard it in the early game and then you can't get it back. However, I'm going to use Guzma here to get Air Balloon, Spike Muth, and the Prism Energy I put back, since I have Double Dragon in my hand already. And this is going to give me exactly the tools I need to turn on and power up Drampa here. A lot of Cory's resources having been expended. Raihan used up, Versus Seeker's used up. All three of his double energies are used up. No energy on the Cyclizar. It's possible that I could make a comeback here if Cory cannot find a replacement attacker and get it powered up in time. Double Dragon on the Drampa. Gonna power it up. I now have damage on my Dracloak as I retreat it, thanks to Spike Muth and Berserk for 160 damage. Knocking out the Snorlax, putting me down to 3 prizes. Still 2 prizes behind, and Cory just has to take 1 more prize to win. So I'm gonna have to hope he stumbles here a little bit, doesn't find the tools he needs, so I can try to sweep through him and take 3 prizes with Drampa. Not having Lux Cape in my deck makes things a little harder here, I think. Something I'm definitely considering putting back in the deck is Luxurious Cape. I'm going to use Oranguru to see another card off the top of the deck. And going to use Nestash here to shuffle his hand to the bottom and draw another card. Finds a Mela though. Said the Raihan was gone, but the Fire Energy allows Mela to be used here. Puts a Fire Energy onto the Cyclizar, and if he can find a way to get 2 more energy onto that thing and retreat, he'll be able to take the knockout on the Drampa. As Cyclizar can do 140 damage for 3 energy if you've played a supporter during the turn, but needs to find a special charge before he can get 2 energy onto that thing in 1 attachment. Trainer's Mail here. Finds the special charge off the Trainer's Mail. Also sees Nest Ball and Guzma. Go right away, goes for the special charge. Gets the twin energy and double colorless. Always a bit of a pain point as a dragon player whenever I see whenever I play against colorless decks and they have access to 3 double energies, whereas Dragon is always just trying to work with its 1 double Dragon energy. And of course, when all your Pokemon have only colorless attack costs, a double colorless and a twin energy are effectively the same as a double Dragon energy. Although I suppose there's very few colorless attackers that can take knockouts for only 2 energy, so I guess that's the payoff. I'm going to use Quick Ball here and Evolution Incense, discarding Peonia. And if he can find the double colorless energy, plays Scoop Up Net to discard it from his hand so he can draw more cards off of the Bibarel. And if he finds the double colorless or the twin energy here, he can switch into Kangaskhan, attach, and take the final knockout. Draws 4 cards. Does not find the energy he needs though. Does find a therapeutic though. Gonna attach that to the Kangaskhan. Effectively trying to create a checkmate situation here. Promotes the Chansey as a sacrifice so he can keep his Skwovet as a pivot. And passes the turn. So we'll be able to take another knockout here, but the question is, can I prevent Cory from setting up another attacker as well? I can get rid of the therapeutic energy off of Kangaskhan with Faba, but if he draws into a twin or double colorless, which is very, very likely, thanks to Skwovet, Bibarel, and Oranguru, seeing him effectively 7 extra cards next turn. So Guzma not going to help me here, because no matter which attacker I Guzma up to take the knockout on, he's going to have the other one to be able to take his final knockout. And again, this is where having Garchomp would have been so much better, since Kangaskhan and Cyclizar cannot knock out Garchomp. So I decide here that the best course of action is to prevent him from trying to find that double colorless with his draw ability. So I Versus Seeker for Hex Maniac. I use Fast Call before I Hex Maniac, so I can just grab a card out of my deck. So I grab Marnie. Just thinning my deck out of cards. You know, it's free value that you don't want to give up. Better to Fast Call for Marnie than draw it next turn. And then Dracloak's ability finds Professor's Letter and Level Ball, both pretty useless at this point. I've not found my recovery items so far to put the Gible and the Gabite back, which has been rough. And Versus Seeker. And yeah, Cory mentions that trying to disrupt his hand would not really help me at all, since he can just draw back up to 5 cards with Bibarel. And Drampa, gonna take the knockout here on the Chansey. Oh, I attach the Dragonite here, as Dragonite could be my endgame since it has 160 HP. Unfortunately, has the energy for the Kangaskhan to use Rally Back for the knockout on Drampa, taking his final prize. So that was cool. I wanted to show this match. It wasn't super close. Unfortunately, my deck just didn't quite function the way it should, but it was cool that Cory got to pull off that neat combo with Greedy Dice and Will to take extra prizes. And I think that deck is actually pretty decent, to be honest. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can be notified when new videos are coming out. See you next time.